CBS News Detroit at 7 starts now.
Good evening, and thanks for joining us on CBS News Detroit at 7. I'm Jeff Skversky alongside sports anchor Ronnie Duncan. We have a lot to talk about tonight, including a milestone last night for one of the greatest to ever play the game, as King James became the NBA's new scoring king.
And LeBron hit a fadeaway jump shot. That was the winning moment in the third quarter. He passes Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who was sitting courtside to witness history. The kid from Akron, Ohio, became the most prolific scorer in NBA history in just his 20th season of dominance. Still somehow on the top of the game at 38 years of age? It's hard to believe. Here's what he had to say after the game.
I don't think it has. I don't think it has hit me. I had a moment, obviously when it happened and embracing that moment and seeing my family and my friends and, people that's been, around me since I started this journey, even before the NBA. So, definitely had a moment right there, very emotional, just to, knowing just, me be from a kid from a small town in Ohio and I had a moment there, but I don't think it's really hit me on what just transpired. As much as I tried to live in the moment, it was kind of a blur.
It hasn't quite hit him just yet, but it has hit us. LeBron's record and legacy. We're going to talk about that tonight as we're joined by Rod Beard, assistant sports editor at the Detroit News and former Pistons beat reporter. Rod, thank you so very much for joining us tonight. Obviously, last night we witnessed history, seeing what LeBron did to take over the scoring record. For someone that has covered the guy and has seen what he has done firsthand on the basketball court for 20 years, does this solidify him as the greatest player in NBA history?
I'm going to say no.
That's where we're starting with this conversation?
I'm going to say no. It's still MJ, and it's always going to be MJ. I don't even know what someone would need to do to surpass MJ. But LeBron has set his own standard to say for 20 years he's played at an all-star level, and he's done it in a technological era with Twitter, with social media, with TV and everything else at an all-time high. But you've never seen LeBron arrested, in jail, or any real issues in his career. If the worst thing that you can say about LeBron was the decision, and that was a bad PR move, he's doing pretty well in the league and for himself. That he's a billionaire, he's done everything right, he's won championships. He may not be number one, but if he's number two or number three, I think that's still pretty good, and we can live with that.
So basically, I want to know this. Is he on your Mount Rushmore?
I think he's on the Mount Rushmore, and you can argue who the other faces on there are. You've got to have Kareem there somewhere. You've got to have MJ, and you probably have Kobe and Wilt if you're going to do five in that case. But LeBron has made his own mark as a different type of player, a versatile 5'2" player in the mold of a Magic Johnson, but even maybe more versatile to play all of the positions and to do the different things that he does.
You talked briefly,
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
You talked briefly about his political consciousness and the mere fact that he's passing Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, the great pitcher, iconic Cleveland, Ohio, Muhammad Ali, of course, Bill Russell, and there you had Jim Brown, but the other person you had was Lou Alcindor, now Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. You talk about the political stance of a LeBron James, Black Lives Matter, when you talk about police violence against unarmed black people, LeBron has stepped up. Has that made him the bigger star? Yeah, we're talking about 38,390 points, but it's what he's done off the court that has really made a lot of noise.
Well, it's a blend of the off the court and on the court, because remember, when he was a high schooler, he was a phenom on Sports Illustrated as being the next great thing, and he's lived up to that. Michael Jordan wasn't in high school and people were saying he's going to be the greatest player that we've seen.
That's right.
Kobe wasn't that in high school. That's what people may not give LeBron enough credit for, is being able to withstand that level of expectation and living up to it and maybe exceeding it in a lot of people's eyes. And that's very, very difficult to do in a social media world.
These conversations are always silly, right? You try to compare MJ to Kobe and to LeBron and things like that. But is there anything LeBron can do? Look, he's 38 years old, but going forward, he plays a couple more years.
Sure.
Is there anything he can do to surpass Jordan? Look, they're different players, they have different builds, but is there anything he specifically can do to surpass him?
No.
And why is that? I mean, look, if LeBron were to play MJ in one-on-one, okay.
What year is it?
both in their heyday, both in their
And
prime.
are the Monstars playing? That's the next question.
Just the two.
Okay.
Let's just say the two. I say LeBron wins that game, that one-on-one battle.
It's a different discussion.
You know we're recording this, so you better tell the truth.
It's a different discussion, but I don't think you can do one-on-one and say this player is better than that player. But LeBron came through at a different time. That technology was different. That we think about nutrition, we think about recovery, and how you take care of your body in a completely different way than we did in the 80s when Jordan was in his heyday. And if you go back to Bill Russell and Wilt Chamberlain, completely different. And athletes are treated differently, that they don't fly commercial, they don't play 3 or 4 games in a row. People care about that, and team owners care about their players a lot more, and we care about them as fans much differently than we did in the 60s and 70s. So LeBron can't go 6 for 6 like Jordan did and win the MVP in every one of those. And that's case closed for me. That's it.
He may not be able to go 6 for 6, but you've got to applaud the run of having gone to 8 straight NBA Finals. You know, there's a lot we can say about this kid. St. Vincent St. Mary's High School. I lived in Cleveland. I remember they came to me. The guy was in junior high. They said, "You want to do a story in this junior high kid that's going to go to the pros?" I said, "Heck no, man. I'm not doing a junior high school story. It's that kid, LeBron James." He has been special ever since he came out. Did you think his career would be what it has come out to be? And remember, at 38, taking care of that body, he is still able to play. And I'm going to tell you, Rod, I guarantee you cannot put a timetable on when he stops.
I went to cover a game. He was playing Detroit Redford, and this was when he was probably a high school junior. There are very few people I'm going to drive to a different state in high school to watch them play. And LeBron was that guy, and he had a post-game press conference. I've never seen that for a high school player. But he lived up to that, and he made me believe that he was going to be an exceptional high school and well, not college, but NBA player. I think in our society, we have these discussions, and we say, if you don't agree with me that MJ was the greatest, then we've got to have a battle royal and fight it out. It's okay to say LeBron is the second or the third or whatever number you want to be, and that be it. That's the discussion. That's fine that maybe he's not as good as Michael Jordan. He's still in the same discussion in the top 2 or 3. That's pretty good. He's doing all right.
Yeah, it's just remarkable what he has become. And from the moment he was, you're talking about junior high school, and you hear these stories all the time, and you're going, no way, absolutely not. But few and far between are a guy like LeBron, a guy like Kobe. I watched Kobe Bryant play in high school. He played against my high school growing up. And so I watched him go through that. And sometimes the ability and determination, your determination and your drive will take you further. What LeBron has done to take care of his body for 2 decades and be still an elite athlete in the NBA is just remarkable. And, you know, look, as a former Pistons beat writer, how many of the Pistons have you spoke to over the years that just admire LeBron, not just for the player that he is, but for his work ethic, attention to detail, the way he carries himself off the court?
Well, the number one is Dwayne Casey, who would say that's the reason that he's in Detroit is because he couldn't get past LeBron when he was in Toronto. But the players understand that LeBron is almost unguardable. You can't guard him with a traditional big. You can't guard him with a small forward because he's too muscular. He's too fast and too athletic for most players to guard. You just got to do your best and try to stay in front of him. But it's that drive that you mentioned, is that no matter what team he's been on, he knows when he can be the lead role. He can be a secondary guy. He's been a pass first guy, but he's going to finish in the top 4 in assists all time. I mean, that's what separates him, is that entire skill set when you look at everything that he's done. And the NBA fraternity recognizes him for that. That if you talk about Kobe, there are things that he didn't do quite as well. LeBron does everything at an exceptional level. And that was the same thing coming out of high school, was that, well, what's his weakness? Well, he might not have one. It may just be he's going to have to get old, or an injury is going to curtail his career, but it's not that the skill set isn't there.
Rod, the one thing that everybody can say, and I'm going to put my hand on it, and if I got to put a Bible out here, we're going to do that. The guy is versatility with a capital V. There's never been a player in the history of this game who can do as much as this guy can do. So they talk about who's the best player, who's the most impactful player, and he may get that title. And the other thing, everybody keeps missing or surpassing what Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was able to do. Did you know this guy? How many three-pointers did Kareem Abdul-Jabbar shoot?
Well, it's a
in his
different
NBA
game.
lifetime?
It is a different...
No, but it's only one. It's only one. And that's the one part of LeBron's game that he's expanded on. So he's got more points now. And so when you consider Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, you consider the 6 championships, you consider the fact that he was a Muslim at a time in America that people didn't even recognize who or what he was, he is still, to me, one of the greatest ever to play. LeBron has benefited from social media, the way the game is played. Back in the day, I could put my hand on you as an NBA player. I can't do that anymore.
Right.
And so LeBron has benefited from that. It's nothing to say, everybody, oh, no. They didn't change the rules for LeBron. In college at UCLA, Kareem couldn't dunk. Kareem could only play 3 seasons of college basketball. LeBron didn't have that. Imagine you take Kareem Abdul-Jabbar out of New York, Powell Memorial High School, forget about UCLA. You think we're talking about LeBron James being the all-time leading scorer? I don't think so.
No, and I think that's a great point, because Kareem often gets overlooked for the impact that he had on the court, off the court. He had a shot that you couldn't defend.
The skyhook.
You couldn't defend it. Even Wilt, there's no way he's getting to that
That's
shot.
right.
He invented something that wasn't there. And so you talk about who's the best, who's your favorite? That's maybe the way we should be phrasing this question. Who's your favorite player instead of who's the best? Because any measure that you have is going to have somebody say something different.
And along those lines, I mean, the game has evolved and it's changed. It's become way more of a three-point game. You're not seeing the big man dominate anymore. I mean, look at Nerlens Noel, the Pistons. I mean, you look back, let's say 20 years ago, Nerlens may be more of a dominant player, but the game has changed so much. We saw with Jahlil Okafor, who the Sixers drafted really high years ago. They thought he was going to be this twin tower setup with Joel Embiid, but the game just has completely changed. And so when you go back and you look at history, you're right. Maybe Kareem and the guys from 50 years ago would have more points if they were a part of this three-point game that is today.
Because they would have tailored their game to that.
Right.
You know, Rod, you and I talked earlier before. I mean, just a brief conversation. It wasn't a secret conversation, but we were talking about, had we ever seen LeBron James before in professional basketball? And I gave you one name, and I believe you agree with me. He came out of Indianapolis. He was 6'8". When he played in the NBA, he was a man-child in that game. Very similar to LeBron James. His name is George McGinnis. He played with the Philadelphia 76ers 1 year before Dr. J got there. Then they played together. They got to the finals. They lost to Portland, Bill Walton. And then, of course, the next year he's out of the league. He's off the team. But when he was with Denver in the Indiana Pacers, he was something special. And to know how good he really was, can you imagine if he was to play as many games as LeBron without getting injured? What will we be talking about today? There have been so many players that have played before LeBron, and we act like LeBron is something new. I'm sorry. Spencer Haywood, right out of Detroit, was just as damn good. But unfortunately, he succumbed to a lot of different things. LeBron is a great player. I'm not taking anything away from him. I'm not taking anything away from a 4-time NBA champion, a 4-time MVP. But you know what? Michael Jordan went to that ship, 6 times, and walked away with 6 championships. Okay? And he missed 3 years. So it could have been 9, right?
It could have been 9, but that's the discussion. Is kind of, you look at the longevity that LeBron brings to the table, and the skill set. Maybe with McGinnis, it's a similar player. LeBron, again, all of those skills are at exceptional levels. He passes like Magic Johnson.
Yes,
he has the
does.
vision of a Magic Johnson. He scores like some of the other superlative players that we've talked about. So all of those things kind of coming together. That kind of makes him the legend and the icon that he is that on the basketball court, he can do anything you need him to do.
More with our conversation with Ronnie Duncan and Rod Beard when we come right back.
CBS News Detroit, on your block, around the clock in Macomb County. Hi, we're CBS News Detroit. But we don't just cover the news here. We're also here, and everywhere in between. You know, the places you live, work, and play in Southeast Michigan. We're talking less of this and more of the stories that actually matter to you.
CBS News Detroit, on your block, around the clock.
That's right, local news just found a home in your neighborhood. We're CBS News Detroit, live, streaming, and on demand. Nice to meet you. CBS News Detroit, on your block, around the clock in Wayne County. CBS News Detroit, on your block, around the clock in Monroe County.
CBS News Detroit, the stories you care about.
Live, streaming, and on demand. We're on your block, around the clock.
Southeast Michigan news whenever you want it.
We live here. We work here.
From North Branch to Southgate.
East Point to Westland.
Wherever you live, we're here for you.
Making a difference in your neighborhood.
CBS News Detroit, live, streaming, and on demand. Building a better newscast, one story at a time.
CBS News Detroit, on your block, around the clock in Oakland County.
How would you build the newscast of the future?
Expect the unexpected.
CBS News Detroit.
CBS News Detroit.
Southeast Michigan news whenever you want it.
We're ready to go live from your community.
Anywhere, anytime.
Live streaming and on demand.
If that's the name of the game.
We are ready. CBS News Detroit, in your neighborhood. Live, streaming, and on demand.
He's amazing. He's amazing. I'm glad that he got up and got himself together and playing the big lead. I am so proud of him. And I hope he continue on doing it. And hooray to his son, because his son is right behind him.
They love LeBron. That's one fan from Akron, Ohio, what she had to say about LeBron's performance last night, and perhaps up next, Ronnie. Welcome back. Once again, we're joined by assistant sports editor of the Detroit News, Rod Beard, as well as sports anchor Ronnie Duncan.
You know, Rod, you and I were talking during the commercial break, and Jeff was part of this conversation. I got to ask, was that overkill last night? And I don't know about you, I was a little touchy with that whole Witness commercial, too, by Nike. I was like, wait a minute now, okay, I get the whole Witness thing, but y'all done taking this to another level. I ain't see Jesus out there, I saw LeBron James.
Like everything in the social media era, it's packaged, it's pre-produced, and I had an issue with, wait a minute, there's still 10 seconds left in the third quarter. Why are we doing an entire production to present him this ball? Give him the ball, let him do a 10-second speech, let the commissioner say a few words, and let's move on.
But it's a regular season game. It's a regular season game. At the end of the day, does it really matter? You're in the Lakers' house, okay? You got Kareem there to witness it. If the game was here in Detroit against the Pistons,
sure,
maybe it would be handled a little bit differently, but you're witnessing history. Why not celebrate it? I mean, so many times, 20 years ago, Michael Jordan hit a record, maybe we wouldn't see it because you weren't able to watch games the way we can watch them today.
Jeff, I got something for you. You just posed that question. And I'm going to take you back to my favorite city, Baltimore, Maryland. Cal Ripken. They did pause that game because he
and
had,
baseball's a different rhythm. But I'm with you.
But in other records, they haven't. They do the little 10-second thing, and we're back to the game. I think for the love of the game, and I'm a purist when it comes to basketball, that game should have been stopped, paused, but should have gone right back. We can come back and say we'll talk more about LeBron and what he did. What was more important is that they're fighting for their lives against OKC to do what, Ron? To make the playoffs.
And that was one of the context of the game that they tried to put it in is, hey, this game matters.
That's right.
Both of these teams are vying for a playoff spot, but you in the rhythm that you have, because it very much is, okay, we've done all this pomp and circumstance. Now, wait a minute. Who am I guarding? We got to finish these last 10 seconds of the third quarter and take another timeout to come back to the quarter after that. So just in the cumulative time, it was just a little off-putting for me to have to look at all of this stuff going on. It could have been done at the end of that third quarter because 10 seconds left, hey, he breaks the record, Oklahoma City goes down and they take a shot, boom, we're at the end of the third quarter. Then you can take as much time as you need between quarters. It just felt a little bit stilted the way that
I am all for celebrating history, and I've seen it in other sports. And yes, baseball has a different rhythm,
sure,
and other sports have a different rhythm. But to me, look at it like a long media timeout. And a long timeout. Maybe the glass broke, and you've had stoppages in basketball before. At the end of the day, you're witnessing history compared to, and I know they're fighting for the playoffs, but a regular season game. And to your point, maybe is Anthony Davis. He didn't seem too thrilled. So maybe Anthony Davis is with you.
Come on, Rod. I know you're not a LeBron James hater, but you playing one on TV.
No, but so the Anthony Davis thing is just really weird to me that it seemed like he didn't know what was going on. And with maybe he didn't understand that was the basket that broke the record, but he just seemed kind of very, it's the person at your wedding who's just kind of there and they're just waiting, they're waiting for the open bar to start. They're not really interested in the ceremony itself. Just wait for the open bar and let's get that done.
Well, it's tough in basketball. He goes into the game and to sit here and tally points, you have 1,000 things on your mind as an athlete in that situation late in the game, and you're going to be sitting there counting points. I mean, LeBron knew what the total was because you saw his reaction, and the entire house saw. But maybe Anthony Davis just didn't know.
And I'll lean to that. I'll give him.
Whatever, man. Why don't you stop lying on TV?
I'll give him the benefit of the doubt.
Why don't you stop lying on TV?
I don't know Anthony Davis.
You don't have to know, but you know reactions, and you know when people responding like, "Man, I ain't about this. I'm getting out of here."
Body language.
Body language said it all. Y'all gonna sit up here and make excuses for Anthony Davis. So Anthony Davis, if you listen to me and watch it, get healthy, and maybe you can talk about somebody.
So are you trading him before the deadline?
I sure am.
Okay.
He's broken promises all day long.
Okay.
You know, I want to talk about the NBA.
Literally and figuratively.
I do want to talk about the NBA trade deadline and everything going on with the Pistons. And look, for the Detroit Pistons to get a player like LeBron, they're not going to get a player of that caliber in free agency.
Yeah, make this make sense because you really going down a sleepy slope because they ain't going to do nothing this year. But go ahead.
Yeah, and so, you know, you have to build through the draft for an organization like this and a city like this. It's not LA, it's not New York, it's not Miami. What do the Detroit Pistons have to do to get a player of, I don't want to say LeBron's a once-in-a-generation kind of player, but to really turn things around? I mean, look, they have not made it out of the first round of the playoffs in 15 years.
Well, it starts in the draft, and this year the number one pick, the presumptive number one pick is Victor Wembanyama. And so a 7'3" guy who can do sort of the same things LeBron can do, yeah, if you can land on that. But with the Cade Cunningham piece that they do have, it's just assembling these pieces. They've got the right GM in place in Troy Weaver to do those things, but you need a little bit of luck. And we've seen this template with Phoenix in recent years. They had Devin Booker and just couldn't find the other pieces to put around him. But when they got close enough, you go out and get Chris Paul and you make that thing work. Cleveland did the same sort of thing when they went and got Donovan Mitchell this year to kind of say, here's the last piece. We're making the Kool-Aid. We've got the sugar. We've got the water. Now let's stir it all in and make it all work.
Y'all being nice. Y'all being nice.
We know they can do it. The template is there. They've got the right general manager to do it. But
Why is Troy Weaver the right general manager now?
Because you've seen what he can do in the draft and in trades and in his personnel development and what he's done. And he identifies talent. He's the one who banged on the table and said Russell Westbrook is going to be an MVP type talent when he was in Oklahoma City. And they pushed forward to draft him there. And they got Kevin Durant. He was with Carmelo Anthony at Syracuse. So he understands these transformative players and what they can do.
And he's a Syracuse guy. He used to coach under Jim Boeheim. And so he knows talent. But, you know, when you look at the Pistons, do they need to do a thing like Philadelphia has done, going through that whole process with Sam Hinkie and everything else? Do they need to go that drastic here, or they've kind of been in that?
Jeff, let me help you with something. It's called Victor Wembanyama, okay? This ain't Darko Milicic, okay? We cannot make a mistake. You get him, then all of a sudden, a lot of your problems are solved.
But you're not guaranteed to get him.
No, you're not guaranteed, but you weren't guaranteed to get LeBron, or you weren't guaranteed to get Carmelo, and you weren't guaranteed to get Darko.
Well, you were guaranteed to get a Hall of Famer with the number 2 pick, unless you pick Darko.
What did the Pistons do?
You picked door number 2.
Okay,
that's the wrong one.
And that's the sad door to pick. I don't know if you remember it, but everybody here was sitting around, we picked 2. And as a matter of fact, what is he doing now?
He is in Russia, and he was, I forget what he was doing. He was like a lumberjack or something. But you kind of knew, and I said this at the time. When you're showing me the same Darko clip, this grainy footage of him with that baseline turnaround, and there's one other move that he makes, and those are the only 2 clips that you have of Darko, I'm a little bit skeptical on that. I know what Carmelo does. I know what Dwayne Wade does. I know these guys can be transformative. I don't know about Darko, and we see how that turns out.
So is there a relief that Joe Dumars is not making this pick, and it's Troy Weaver? Go ahead. I'm not hating. I'm just being truthful.
Yes, there is a relief. I feel confident.
Don't give me this much time and don't expect me to be truthful.
Well, I'm with you here. I think Troy Weaver can identify talent, and he knows the right pieces and how to build this. When he got here and took this job as general manager, he cleaned out the entire roster within a couple of weeks. That's insanely difficult to do in the NBA, is to make enough trades and to make enough moves where you can take this down to the studs in your rebuild and then start to add those pieces. We've seen Sadiq Bey, we've seen Cade Cunningham, we've seen Isaiah Stewart. The pieces are there. And to make a trade and to get Bojan Bogdanovic and to get him playing at a career level, those are identifying the right
every
pieces.
NBA team needs that perimeter shooter, and that's where Bogdanovic comes in. He's a tremendous asset. I like what Ivy is doing, especially because he's young. The team is so young, and he's got draft stock that he can go ahead and do what? Give it away, trade it away, or get something back for it. Don't be surprised. Victor comes here, and there's another James who plays here. And it could be Ronnie James. And if Ronnie comes, you know his daddy come with him, right?
Well, there's that. See,
it's called segue. I had to get back to the LeBron James situation.
There's that. It all comes full circle from there.
When you think about what the Pistons potentially could do in the draft, I mean, it's a no-brainer if they have the #1 overall pick. If not, it may be a different conversation. When you look at what they have now and you talk about all the players and the young talent they have now, and do we really know that Cade's going to take it to the next level? I mean, he's been injured most of the year. Do they have the pieces right now, along with the head coach? Is this the right head coach?
I think that's still to be seen, because the defense hasn't improved in the time that he's been here. And when you look at Dwayne Casey, he was brought here to coach that Blake Griffin, Andre Drummond, Reggie Jackson team. He was supposed to be in a championship caliber run by his 5th year now, and he's been helping in this turnaround, in this rebuild, so it's not quite the position he wanted to be in. I think Dwayne Casey is a good teacher, but if you give him a young roster, any coach is going to struggle with that. And we've seen that around the league, is that a young roster that's struggling, that trying to build through the draft, it doesn't matter who you have in that position. But the pieces that they do have, it's on that same formula. Get the young pieces together, and then you bring in the veteran that's going to tie it all together and make it all work. I think they're still on track to do that. Whether they get Victor or they get someone else is the key question here.
But they appear to be still just years and years away. It does not seem like it's an overnight fix.
But that's the warp speed that happens.
One guy can change it.
The other piece, you get Victor this year, and you have enough cap space in the offseason where you can add a significant.
They have a ton. They're 25th in NBA salary. They have a ton of money, but it takes time to develop these guys. They need to learn how to win in crunch time in the NBA when you're going up against some of the biggest franchises. I mean, to think that they can just come in with young talent, and even if they were able to land Victor, all of a sudden, flip of a switch.
Victor and a vet, it could happen.
That's right, Victor and a vet, somebody in that locker room. But the one thing I love about this kid, they say that his stock value is higher than what LeBron's was when LeBron came out. He can do, if you've never seen him on videotape, trust me, I ain't never seen nobody play like that.
Right, but still, how many years did it take LeBron to win that first championship?
Oh, the first championship, it took a while.
And so what I'm saying is the Pistons are
still. Danny Ferry was the general manager. Let's not forget
that Cavs team was bereft of talent.
Yeah.
But when LeBron got
So you're saying the Pistons are in better shape today than what they had?
With Cade Cunningham
with no question.
and the other pieces, Jaden Ivey, they are, yes, and Jalen Duren even.
Yes.
They have the pieces that's there. I think it's just going to be a hyper-speed sort of thing when they get that next piece. And with the flexibility they have under the cap to be able to do some things, they can add an all-star caliber player. And now, you know what? We're cooking with hot grease at that point.
All right, final thoughts with Ronnie and Rod Beard when we come back after this.
CBS News Detroit, on your block, around the clock in Macomb County. Hi, we're CBS News Detroit. But we don't just cover the news here. We're also here, and everywhere in between. You know, the places you live, work, and play in Southeast Michigan. We're talking less of this, and more of the stories that actually matter to you.
CBS News Detroit, on your block, around the clock.
That's right, local news just found a home in your neighborhood. We're CBS News Detroit, live, streaming, and on demand. Nice to meet you. CBS News Detroit, on your block, around the clock in Wayne County. CBS News Detroit, on your block, around the clock in Monroe County.
CBS News Detroit, the stories you care about.
Live, streaming, and on demand. We're on your block, around the clock.
Southeast Michigan news whenever you want it.
We live here. We work here.
From North Branch to Southgate.
East Point to Westland.
Wherever you live, we're here for you.
Making a difference in your neighborhood.
CBS News Detroit, live, streaming, and on demand. Building a better newscast, one story at a time.
CBS News Detroit, on your block, around the clock in Oakland County.
How would you build the newscast of the future?
Expect the unexpected.
CBS News Detroit.
CBS News Detroit.
Southeast Michigan news whenever you want it.
We're ready to go live from your community.
Anywhere, anytime.
Live streaming and on demand.
If that's the name of the game.
We are ready. CBS News Detroit, in your neighborhood. Live, streaming, and on demand.
Welcome back to CBS News Detroit at 7. We have a special edition tonight. We're talking LeBron James and the Detroit Pistons with Ronnie Duncan and Rod Beard of the Detroit News. And I'll ask you this. I'll throw this out. These guys, the Pistons, all the teams, they watch film of everybody.
Sure.
They have played the Lakers twice so far. LeBron has played in one of those games against the Pistons. What do players, young players, what can they take away from LeBron? Not just his ability on the court, but also off the court, the way he handles himself.
Well, as I said, I think the social media era, but I think it's also you mentor young players. And you get to a certain point in your career where you realize the sun is starting to set a little bit and you want to have some legacy. And part of that legacy is how you're remembered by the media, how you're remembered by players. And we've seen that with Barry Bonds and guys who are trying to get in the Baseball Hall of Fame now. They weren't remembered so well. And now the chickens have come home to roost with them that they have to rely on the media. But with LeBron, he's been so gracious with his time. He's been mentoring younger players, and he's been an example of how they can carry themselves off the court and to make that balance of being a player, but also being a business person and being an activist and blending all of that together.
When you look at this Pistons team, how long do you think it's going to take for this team to get back to being respectful?
With Victor or without Victor? With Victor, 2 years.
You're not guaranteed Victor, right?
You're not guaranteed anything, but I would say within the next 3 to 4 years that we're going to see a team that is jockeying for the playoffs and maybe winning a playoff series in there somewhere.
You know, with Victor, there's a possibility that we were talking about what LeBron has done. With what Victor could possibly do and where his ceiling is, maybe we're talking about Victor being the all-time leading scorer in NBA history. It can happen. LeBron did some tremendous things in his career. You know, the Cleveland sports base had not seen a championship since Jim Brown in 1964 when they beat the famed Baltimore Colts. LeBron in 2016 brings a championship to Cleveland, Ohio. 2 with Miami, 1 with Cleveland, and 1 with Los Angeles. If you get him, he brings a championship. He will go down on my Mount Rushmore as one of the best. Will he be the best? Well, my life ain't over, and until that's over, then I can't tell you who my best is.
Wilt?
No.
Kobe?
He could be there. Because you know what's interesting about Kobe before we leave? We can talk about everybody's final game. Everybody's final anything. Final time on the ice for Gordie Howe. Final time on the ice for Wayne Gretzky. Final time on the basketball court with Michael Jordan. Final time on the football field with Tom Brady. But nobody will ever make their final game 60 points and a victory. LeBron didn't get a victory last night. He lost.
But that's what the great ones do. The iconic ones know there's a moment. There's a moment.
Yeah.
And I'm going to take this moment and give you what you want.
And that's what Kobe Bryant did. He seized that moment. You're going to remember me. 60 points in a game you're not supposed to win, but because this is my final call, I'm going to do this thing. LeBron, take note.
You bought a ticket.
That's
I'm going to give you a show today, and that was Kobe almost every time he walked on that court. He was a showman.
Yeah, and I look at Allen Iverson. He was that way as well. Now, obviously, Iverson's in a different category with without all of the championships that you have with Kobe and LeBron and the other players that we have spoken about tonight.
Practice.
Right, and that's a whole nother can of worms.
Allen Iverson gets into this conversation?
Well,
you
talk
bring
about
everything Philly with you, don't you?
Well,
because I'm going to tell you right now, I love Allen, but Allen was too injury prone. Allen could only play 10 plus years to give you what he gave you. Yeah, he was undersized, but guess what? He had Larry Brown sitting there. All you got to do is be in the gym, son.
I'm
All you
talking
got
about
to do is work out, son.
showman aspect.
He showed me not how to work. He showed me what not to do as an NBA player.
Solely as
he gets too much credit. He gets too much credit as a player. He was good. But no, this ain't Philly. This is Detroit. Well, give me Isaiah Thomas.
And I think I see what you're trying to say there.
Give me Isaiah.
Is that he brought a different grit every game.
And so did Isaiah.
Touche.
There you go.
I'm done.
Case closed.
Yeah,
3, 2, 1. I'm done.
That'll join us. That'll do it for us tonight. For Ronnie Duncan, for Rod Beard, thank you so much for joining us, Rod, from the Detroit News.
Anytime.
We'll have
Thank you,
more
guys.
news coming up next on CBS News Detroit at 7.